Now, a lot of you who follow me or know me personally might know that in the past, I've historically been a very big Apple guy. You might be asking yourself, what's going on with all these PC videos? Well, the reality of it is that I'm still very much an Apple guy and a Mac guy. macOS remains my favorite desktop operating system. But the fact of the matter remains that while macOS is good and, in my opinion, better at many things than Windows is, it still lacks in one really big area, which is gaming. Games that are designed and well optimized for Apple Silicon run great on this thing. In some cases, they run at higher frame rates than high end graphics cards do. But the key phrase there is being designed for or well optimized for Apple Silicon. And most games aren't. Even games that are designed for the Mac, most of them still haven't been rewritten for Apple Silicon. The fact of the matter is it's really kind of just an endless spiral. People just aren't buying Macs for gaming, and as a result, game developers just aren't making their games compatible for Macs. And because developers aren't making their games compatible for Macs, people aren't buying Macs for gaming. So it's really this endless downward spiral, and this could really result in Macs just never really being known for gaming, even though when you design the app for Apple Silicon, it actually runs really, really well, and it can handle games very well. Now, this has the 64 gigabytes of unified memory, which means it can use as much of that as VRAM as possible, which means this essentially has up to, I would say, probably like 54 gigs of VRAM, because you're not going to be using all of it for VRAM. You're going to be using it some of it for the OS and some of it for the game. So maybe more in reality, maybe more like 32 gigs. But still, my point is that that's a lot of VRAM available to this, and it just can't take full advantage of that in games because they haven't really been written to. Now, don't get me wrong, when it comes to productivity, this thing is still a beast. This thing was made in 2021 because this has the M1 Max chip in it, and it still holds up very well today. It's just really not very good for gaming. You really only have a few options when it comes to playing games on a Mac. One, the game has to be designed for Mac and preferably written for Apple Silicon. There's not very many titles out there that are. One of the biggest ones is World of Warcraft, which I've played on here, and it runs very well on Apple Silicon. Option two is you use an app like Crossover, which is basically just Wine, which you would see on Linux to run Windows apps. It's basically just Wine with a graphical interface, and it's a paid app. Or three, you use the Apple Porting Kit, which is a relatively new tool, but that really requires a lot of knowledge of the terminal, and it's not really that straightforward of a process to do. Option four, which I do for a lot of games on here, is you run Mac or you run Windows inside of Parallels, which is the main reason why I got so much RAM for this thing, is so that I can give Windows a minimum of 32 gigabytes and really run games as high of a potential as I can. But obviously, running a game inside of a virtual machine is going to have some substantial performance issues, especially since Parallels isn't really, in my opinion, the best hypervisor out there, but it's the best one for Mac. But anyway, that's about it. Just wanted to let you guys know, people who personally know me and people who have seen my much older videos, I'm still very much so an Apple guy. I still own a lot of Apple products. I still love macOS. In fact, this is macOS 26 beta, so I'm still very much well invested into Apple's ecosystem. But my primary focus has shifted more towards gaming and less towards productivity, which means that I'm going to be making a lot of PC content.